Hi, welcome to our series of discussions about leadership in movies. My name's David Anderson, and today we're discussing leadership lessons from the movie Moneyball, and I'm here with my daughter.
Hi, my name is Natalie Anderson.
Who'll be asking me some questions about the lessons we can learn from Moneyball and Billy Beane, the general manager of the Oakland Athletics in the 2002 season.
Moneyball details the true story of Billy Beane, the manager of the Oakland A's baseball team. With a lacking budget, Beane enlists the help of Peter Brand, a recent college graduate, to use statistical formulas to recruit cheap players that other scouts had viewed as flawed. With this strategy, over time, Beane was able to create a winning team by utilizing data and analysis.
What leadership maturity level do you think the Oakland A's management team is?
So in the movie we see the 2002 season, the very end of 2001 and through 2002. And in the close season, so that's over the holidays, the Christmas, New Year holiday at the end of 2001, Billy Beane, the general manager, he's really a very solid level 4 on our scale. That he's delivering very consistent results with the Athletics, and that's because he has a system in place, and that system is capable of developing young players and scouting them, finding them, developing them, bringing them up into the starting team and turning them into superstars. At the beginning of 2002, 3 of their best players are all leaving to go play for rich teams like New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox. And Billy's faced with how does he rebuild the team and continue the consistent results. We see that Billy he aspires to maturity level 5. He wants to be the best. He wants to win the World Series. He wants the championship. He wants the ring. And then he goes through this realization that it's never going to be possible with the Athletics. And by the end of the movie and the end of the 2002 season, we really see that Billy's matured and developed, and he's developed into a level 6 leader. He's realized that with the Athletics he can't win the championship, but he can reinvent the way that baseball is played. And he can change the game, and that's beyond just the success at one team. He can have an impact, really a global impact, but a national level impact. So he matures from level 4 to level 6.
Do you think Billy struggles with empathy?
He definitely has some challenges with empathy. Of course, he wouldn't be an effective leader if he didn't have empathy, but it's like he has some sort of delayed reaction with his empathy. There's a point where he has to talk with the head coach, Art Howe, and it's perhaps about 1/3 of the way into the season, and Art Howe's unhappy with the roster, with the players that Billy has acquired for him, and the strategy that Billy has as general manager for how they should be playing. Art Howe's unhappy. And Billy says to him, I should have made you more of the part of the conversation from the beginning. Well, if Billy had better empathy, he would have realised that in the beginning. It's like sort of delayed effect. So he struggles a little bit, and it affects certain things.
Do you think that Billy is good at leading by inspiration?
So that's tied directly to the empathy thing, I think. That it's very clear from scenes in the movie that Billy struggles with that. Whenever he tries to do an inspiring talk for the team or some individual that he's trying to motivate, someone he's trying to persuade to get on board with the changes he's making, his inspirational talks tend to fall very flat. And if he had better empathy, I think his inspirational talks would be a lot more inspiring. You know, there's a point where he walks into the changing room and he says, you know, you guys don't look like a winning team, but you are one. So go out there and play like one tonight. It's not very inspiring, you know. So he struggles with that, and I think it's rooted in this sort of delayed effect empathy that he has.
What qualities make Billy Beane an effective leader?
I think a key one is that he's very resilient. And that resilience, I think, comes from his career. You know, so you see all the flashbacks in the movie to when he was a high school kid, and then he gets drafted straight out of high school to the New York Mets. That's a pretty big deal, I think. I guess at the time it was like $250,000, but that was a lot of money. It's a lot of money today, but it's really a lot of money back then, and especially for like, what, an 18-year-old kid, 17 years old. And then it doesn't work out so good for him. He doesn't manage to become that big-time centre fielder for the New York Mets, and he bounces down to the minor leagues and then back to the major league and back down to the minor, and he bounces from one team to another. Eventually he ends up at the Oakland Athletics, and he's still not playing at the level that he would like to be playing, and so he eventually just decides he has to quit. So he gives up being a player and he becomes a scout. He starts to reinvent his career, and he must have done reasonably well at scouting, and then he made a little bit of a diagonal move, bit of a promotion to be the assistant general manager. Then he became the general manager. But at the Oakland Athletics, where a lot of the time they're not going to be winning, it'll be a struggle. They don't have so much money. So Billy's had this very up and down career, and he's had to learn how to cope with that mentally, how to pick himself up and keep trying again. So his resilience makes him a very strong and competent leader. And when he's faced with some adversity, some difficulties, he doesn't let it defeat him. He tries to think differently, to think out of the box and come up with some alternative way to move forward and recover. He learned to work with the constraints that he has. You see that at the beginning where he goes to visit the team owner, Steve Schott. Steve Schott's a property developer around the San Francisco area. He's rich, but he's not super rich. You know, he's not Bill Gates or Steve Ballmer kind of level rich. And he doesn't have tens of millions to give Billy to rebuild the team. So Steve Schott makes it very clear, these are the constraints. You know, I need you to be comfortable not spending the money that I don't have. And Billy accepts those constraints because he's a resilient character. He doesn't throw a temper tantrum and behave like a little kid. You know, he doesn't say, oh, I can't work with these numbers. You know, he just like, okay. And he gets on with it. He's very pragmatic. So his resilience and his pragmatism, he's always looking for, how can I produce the most effective result with what I've got? And these things make him a very effective leader. I think we also see a base humility with him, that he realizes the environment he's in is bigger than him. He can't control it. He can't. There's no wishful thinking. So he can't magic money that Steve Schott doesn't have. He can't make the Oakland Athletics a bigger, richer team from a TV area that's got more people in it. He can't do any of these things. He can't change the rules of baseball or the way that the Major League Baseball works. He doesn't control any of these things. And he has this humility to realize that he's just a small cog in the bigger system, and he has to work with what he's got. So the combination of his resilience, his pragmatism, and his humility make him a highly effective leader.
How do you think Billy's altruism enables him to be a more effective leader?
So fundamentally, all good leaders need to be altruistic in nature. That you might follow someone because they're confident. So imagine when you were playing soccer, the best girl on the team, if you're in the team and you're watching your colleague and she's playing really well, she's dribbling, she's shooting or something, scoring goals, everybody on the team feels better, right? So the one confident person becomes the leader that they follow. And then if somebody's very charismatic, if they're like a magnetic personality, people will follow them. They become fans, if you like. So those are good qualities, but if you're trying to do something at a bigger scale and over a longer time period, eventually those things are not enough. The confidence, the charisma, it's not enough. If you feel that your leader is doing it for themselves, for their own self-interest, their own personal benefit, would you sacrifice yourself to just make the other person richer? Probably not, right? So people need to feel that the leader has their interests at heart, that the leader's working to serve them, whether it's personally or as a group. They need to feel that the leader is contributing to everybody's success. And we see this with Billy, that he's not just in it for himself. In fact, if he was in it for himself, he'd probably make a bunch of different decisions. And at the end of the movie, when he's offered the job as the new general manager at the Boston Red Sox, and at the time it was the highest salary for any general manager of a sports team, any sport, anywhere in the world. And he turns it down. So he's not doing it for the money. And I'm sure that altruism, that I'm doing it in the service of others, inspires everyone else, whether it's the team owner who realises Billy's working for me, or it's the players on the team or the fans, that they realise that yes, there are times where Billy makes tough decisions and unusual decisions, and people don't always understand why did he do that. But if you wait a little while, you see that ultimately it was in the team's best interest, the club's best interests, and therefore everyone's best interest. So being an altruistic person who's working in the service of others, not just doing it for himself, that inspires people to follow his lead, makes him a more effective leader.
Finally, why do you teach this film in your leadership classes?
We actually use this film in 3 different classes. We wrote, together with my colleague Alexei Zegloff in Fit for Purpose, we wrote a whole chapter about this movie, because the key concept behind what's happening was they started using different criteria to select the players for the roster. And very simply, historically, that had been, if you're looking for attacking players, batting players, you chose them by their batting average. And instead, the Athletics, Billy and Pete, whose real name was Paul de Podesta, they started selecting the players based on RBI, runs batted in. And that changed baseball. It changed the valuation of players and what money they were traded for, and which players you would select in the draft out of high school or college. So we use the book and the movie to teach that in our Fit for Purpose class. We also use this movie in our change leadership class because Billy's a change leader. He's trying to lead a significant change at the Oakland Athletics, and ultimately it has an impact on all of baseball. So the movie illustrates a lot of the different models that we teach in that class, and the way that Billy leads the change, where he tries to affect change with the minimum of impact, and when it doesn't work he escalates, and when that's not working he tries something else, and eventually he escalates to the highest level, which historically is now known as the Moneyball moment, where in real life he traded 3 players and he sent 5 more down to the minor leagues. So in the mid-season he traded out 8 players on his 25 player roster, and people didn't really understand why he'd done it. So then the team started to play much better, and of course they recovered and made it to the playoffs. And people looked back and said, wow, when he traded out these 8 guys, that was the punctuation point that changed everything. And that's become known as the Moneyball moment. So we use this movie in the change leadership class. And then why do we use it in this leadership development class? Well, we see Billy exhibiting a large number of the character traits that we would expect in a high maturity leader. We also see that Billy's good at leading by direction. He's good at leading by example, and he tries to he leads by signaling. He's introducing a new value system, a new way of evaluating players. And for example, he values players who hit the ball and get to first base. But there's a point where he's coaching some of the team. There's a guy on the team called Chavez or Chavi, and he says, no stealing bases. And Chavi says, but that's what you pay me for. He said, no, I pay you to get on first, not to get out at second. So he's very good at leading with those values and communicating that. But he struggles with inspiration. Right? He's not a very inspiring talker. So he's good at lead by direction, lead by example, leading with the values and signaling, but he's not good at leading by inspiration. And we can learn from that. Right? So Billy has a lot of the character traits and the leadership ability that we teach in the class, so it's a great way of illustrating it.
If you're interested in learning more about our leadership and management classes, please visit djaa.com for more information.